Everyone who is not a rationalist cannot bear the rationalist truth of existence. They demand that ultimate reality be about emotion, or perception, or mystical intuition. They demand that love, or prayer, or meditation, or mindfulness, or chanting, or psychedelic drugs, be the answer to existence. They can't abide the notion that reason and logic alone take us to ultimate truth. That's no good for non-thinking types. That's unacceptable to these types. People are not driven by the pure desire for truth. They are driven to have the truth satisfy whatever their personality type is. Feeling types seek feeling answers, revolving around love. Mystical intuitives seek answers revolving around shamanistic epiphanies, or vision quests, or transformative mental states produced by meditation or psychedelics. Sensing type seeks to have observable facts and evidence. Do you see how each type tailors the truth to serve its own inclinations and tastes? The actual truth, however, doesn't care what anyone's inclinations and tastes are. The actual truth is concerned with coherence, simplicity, economy, rationality, logic, completeness and consistency, unity, wholeness, integration, stability, universality, and, in its intelligible aspect, has absolutely nothing to do with feelings, faith, prayer, mysticism, meditation, mindfulness or sensory empiricism. People are trapped by their personality types, and they are unable to transcend these to reach the rational and logical truth. Only thinking types, conceptualists, can achieve that. Reason, logic and conceptualism terminate at one subject only, ontological mathematics. One right answer, infinite wrong answers. Logos is right. Mythos is wrong. Pathos is wrong. Ethos is wrong. Kairos is wrong. It's all wrong if it's not reflective of the PSR and Occam's razor. Imagine how irrational and illogical you would have to be to put yourself up against the PSR and Occam's razor. No thinking type could or would do that. The non-thinking types, however, find it easy. It comes entirely naturally to them. Thinking is not their thing. Experiencing things is their game. Wikipedia says, Wilber's ideas have mainly attracted attention in specific subcultures and have been widely ignored in academia. Why would any academic take any system seriously that opposes reason and logic? The flavor of Wilber's integral theory is present in the following set of quotations. Wilber said, "What's my philosophy? In a word, integral. And what on earth, or in heaven, do I mean by integral?" The dictionary meaning is fairly simple: comprehensive, balanced, inclusive, essential for completeness. Short definition: tall order. The issue, of course, is by what means do you bring about supreme integration? Do you appeal to a monism, a single master equation, a foundational principle, a foundational substance, arch, an existential axiom? Do you rely on maximal rationality and logic, maximal simplicity, stability and universality, coherence, completeness and consistency, unity, holism? Well, Wilber does none of that. He does not appeal to mathematics, philosophy or science. Instead, he appeals to Eastern mysticism, which he personally loves and follows, and which he believes transcends reason and logic. It certainly doesn't do so by any rational and logical means. Wilber is a mystic and a feeling type, probably a Myers-Briggs INFP type. Integral for him is nothing like integral for a thinking type, such as an INTJ. So, straight away, a huge intellectual war must be engaged in to clarify the meaning of integral. Will you support irrational non-dualism, or the PSR, the root of rationalism? Wilber said, an integral approach is based on one basic idea: no human mind can be 100% wrong. Or, we might say, nobody is smart enough to be wrong all the time. And that means, when it comes to deciding which approaches, methodologies, epistemologies, or ways of knowing are correct, the answer can only be, all of them. Well, plenty of people are dumb enough to be wrong all the time. That's what the Dunning-Kruger effect is all about. David Dunning and Justin Kruger said, unskilled and unaware of it, the miscalibration of the incompetent stems from an error about the self, whereas the miscalibration of the highly competent stems from an error about others. If you're incompetent, you can't know you're incompetent. The skills you need to produce a right answer are exactly the skills you need to recognize what a right answer is. The same knowledge that underlies the ability to produce correct judgment is also the knowledge that underlies the ability to recognize correct judgment. To lack the former is to be deficient in the latter. The skills that engender competence in a particular domain are often the very same skills necessary to evaluate competence in that domain, one's own or anyone else's. By itself, the Dunning-Kruger effect refutes Wilber. A stupid person is incapable of being right. They lack any means to know what the right answer is. It's exactly to Dunning-Kruger types that Wilber is most attractive, and to whom he most appeals with his trans-rational arguments. When it comes to deciding which approaches, methodologies, epistemologies, or ways of knowing are correct, the rational and logical answer can only be one of them. All the rest are wrong. The one right answer is, as we have seen, the one that reflects the PSR and Occam's razor. It must be maximally rational, logical, coherent, complete and consistent, unitary, holistic, stable, universal, economic and simple. Everything else can be dismissed right off the bat as irrational, illogical and complicated nonsense. Sadly, Wilber fully indulges all the nonsense. He accepts all the wrong answers. For Wilber, that's what integral means, accepting any old rubbish as if it were true. Wilber said, the integral vision embodies an attempt to take the best of both worlds, ancient and modern. But that demands a critical stance willing to reject unflinchingly the worst of both as well. Every old religion, mired in faith, superstition and mysticism, should be dismissed whole and entire. These decrepit faith systems have nothing of value to contribute to the modern world. They have zero truth content. If you're going to admit as true the thoughts of the Buddha, Moses, Jesus, St. Paul, and Muhammad to integral, you might as well admit as true the thoughts of those that wrote about Zeus, Odin, Amun-Ra, fairies, trolls, elves, dwarves, and all the rest, in which case integral would be exposed as the bizarre, mythical nonsense it really is, wholly preoccupied with man-made fantasy. Seriously, would any truth seeker want to look to ancient religion and mythology for answers to existence? You would in fact get rid of all that senile stuff instantly. It would play no part in your thinking about reality. If Christ isn't God, the whole of Christianity is nonsense. If Allah isn't God, the whole of Islam can be junked. If Jehovah isn't God, who needs Judaism? If existence isn't suffering, who cares what the Buddha thought about anything? Wilber said, I have one major rule: everybody is right. More specifically, everybody, including me, has some important pieces of truth, and all of those pieces need to be honored, cherished, and included in a more gracious, spacious, and compassionate embrace. Anyone who adopts this stance, a wholly irrational and illogical worldview, is wrong from the get-go. It would be much more rational to have a starting point that defaults to everyone being wrong, and then see whose views stand up to any serious scrutiny and analysis. This is basically Descartes' method of doubt. Descartes was a rationalist. Wilber is an irrationalist, a love and lighter, a new agger, with a deep emotional need to pretend that everyone is a valuable contributor to the search for the truth. They're not. They're serious obstacles in the path of the truth. Most people have zero pieces of truth, but countless pieces of lies, and all those lies need to be exposed, denounced, reviled and cured. The Western Enlightenment didn't come about via integral thinking, i.e. everyone is right. It came about thanks to smart people jettisoning all the old garbage and nonsense, and piling into mathematics, science and philosophy. Wilber said, although one of the points of an integral approach to any problem is to language that issue in as large a number of levels as possible, magic, mythic, rational, pluralistic, integral, and super-integral, and this includes the conveyor belt of spirituality, this doesn't mean to cavalierly overlook integral itself. The integral level is a prerequisite for integral we practices, although anybody can be invited to those practices, but realize that an integral depth of the we will not be achieved in any group the majority of whose individuals are not themselves at integral. Is there anything worse, anything less likely to lead to the truth, than mixing up magic, mythic, the rational, and so on? The task is to get rid of the junk and focus on the good stuff, not to take the barrel with all the bad apples and think it's going to produce a good apple. Being at Wilber's integral level more or less means that you have embraced total irrationality and you are prepared to believe anything. If you don't stand for one truth, you will fall for any truth, i.e., you will embrace all truths, which is to say all lies. That's exactly what Wilber does. All falsehoods merge in the mystical state of non-dualism, the supreme lie, the pinnacle of irrationalism, directly opposed to the PSR. The PSR is reachable by reason and logic. Non-dualism is reachable by prayer, meditation and mindfulness. Reason and logic are not required and make no appearance. Being at one with the PSR is to be in the state of absolute knowing. Being at one with the irrational, mystical state of non-dualism is to be in a purely experiential state of absolute unknowing. That's nirvana for irrationalists. Wilber said, an integral approach acknowledges that all views have a degree of truth, but some views are more true than others, more developed, more evolved, more adequate. This is truly hilarious. It brings to mind Orwell's famous slogan, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. In Wilber's case, all truths are equal, but some truths are more equal than others. If you think about, there are only a few positions you can adopt. I'm right, everyone else is wrong. A philosopher such as Schopenhauer would make such a claim. We're right, everyone else is wrong. All religious fundamentalist groups say this, as do all scientists, many philosophers, and indeed any groups that assert they have found the objective, absolute truth. Those that endorse the PSR and Occam's razor are here too. We're all right. This is the fundamental position of all relativists and subjectivists. Wilber belongs here, as his many statements concerning everyone having part of the answer show. We're all wrong. This is the view of groups of troublemakers such as the Discordians, although, of course, they really believe that they are right to hold this view and that everyone else is wrong. I'm wrong, everyone else is right. No one ever says this. This is extremely revealing in itself, and shows how we must always be suspicious of anyone's truth claims since they have no inclination to consider themselves wrong. We're wrong, everyone else is right. No one ever says this either. People such as Wilber actually belong to Group 2, but their inclusive rhetoric is that of Group 3. Wilber's game is to get you to follow him, and he can't do that by saying that you're every bit as right as he is, because then you would be his equal. So, he has to tell you that you're right, but you could be even more right, provided of course that you align yourself more closely with his views, especially regarding mystical non-dualism. In other words, he's actually saying that he's right and you're wrong, but he's trying to make you feel good about being wrong, so that you're more receptive to agreeing that he's right. It's all a huge con. Wilber said, the point of the overall meditative path is to have wakefulness, or consciousness as such, transcend and include all state realms, so it ceases to black out or forget various changes of state, such as dreaming and deep sleep, and instead recognizes a constant consciousness or ever-present non-dual awareness, the union, and transcendence, of individual finite self and infinite spirit. Only someone who likes meditation could ever believe that meditation is any path to truth. The truth of what? Meditation is a state of experience, not a state of any kind of knowledge. Anyone who is attracted to meditation does not care about the rational and logical truth. What they are seeking is a particular feeling, which they are going to label as transcendent. It's the attainment of this state that they want, that they crave. They are addicted to it. The truth is of no interest to them at all. The truth of existence is a state of knowledge, not of experience. If you are in the state of love, you are having a delicious experience, but you certainly aren't in a state of knowledge of existence. Being in love is something that anyone can do. The people who are in love can't tell you about ontology, epistemology, metaphysics, and physics. Can a meditator explain reality to you? Can a mindful person? Can a person of faith who prays a lot define existence? People have the most bizarre ideas about what would constitute the answer to existence. A love and lighter believes that being in a state of unconditional love is the answer to existence. But that's not the answer to existence. That's the answer to what existential state you desire to be in. If an unconditional lover has no clue what reality is, can anyone say that they have answered the mystery of existence? To say, love is the answer to existence is not to give the answer to existence, but to give the answer to what experiential state you aspire to be in. People are so dumb they can't even distinguish between the answer to existence and the subjective state they seek as an ultimate state. They automatically conflate the two. That's how irrational they are, how enthralled to empiricism they are. To want to be in nirvana is to want to be in a particular subjective state, but this certainly isn't a state of objective knowledge. People aren't interested in objective knowledge, and don't consider it any kind of answer. That's why people love religion and spirituality so much. That's why they flock to gurus like Wilber. That's why they hate reason and logic. People are happy with vague ideas such as God, love, non-dualism, their awareness, cosmic consciousness, the oneness, and so on, as the answer to existence. But none of these things are the answer to anything. They're not explanations. They're just bigger mysteries than those they are intended to explain. Yet they're what the masses want. These are what the masses regard as answers. Actual answers, based on reason and logic, would be incomprehensible to them. They're not looking for answers like that, and they're not interested. These are more or less meaningless to the masses. Wilber said, at the integral stages of development, the entire universe starts to make sense, to hang together, to actually appear as a universe, or one world, a single, unified, integrated world that unites not only different philosophies and ideas about the world, but different practices for growth and development as well. Wilber's integral theory has nothing to do with increasing knowledge of reality. It's about increasing immersion in his system, culminating in Buddhist non-dualism, which zero rational and logical people associate with knowledge and with the answer to existence. But plenty of New Agers, Eastern mystics and love and lighters eagerly buy into all this irrational stuff. For them, it's all about personal growth and development. It has nothing to do with learning about the syntax of reality, its ontology, what epistemology it reflects, what laws it obeys. Wilber said, the integral sage, the non-dual sage, is here to show us otherwise. Known generally as tantric, these sages insist on transcending life by living it. They insist on finding release by engagement, finding nirvana in the midst of samsara, finding total liberation by complete immersion. The integral sage is never a mathematician, a philosopher, a scientist, an engineer, a technologist, an AI expert. It's always someone looking for subjective highs. It's always some flavor of Buddhist. Wilber said, human beings are born and begin their evolution through the great spiral of consciousness, moving from archaic to magic to mythic to rational to perhaps integral, and from there perhaps into genuinely transpersonal domains. But for every person that moves into integral or higher, dozens are born into the archaic. Actually, to a rationalist, there's nothing to distinguish the archaic from the Wilberian transpersonal. In each case, you are dealing with people mired in mysticism, faith, subjectivism, superstition, and emotionalism, with no link at all to reason, logic, mathematics, science, and philosophy. It's essential for the great task of raising humanity to the level of the truth to get rid of all the false prophets and the false gurus, to demolish their pernicious systems of nonsense that prey on weak minds. Wilber's integral theory has as much truth content as Abrahamism, i.e. none. These prophet and guru types need to be called out. The truth demands it. One truth, infinite lies. Why not be on the side of the truth for once? Change the habits of a lifetime. Stop believing that prayer and meditation have any value. They don't. If you want to have amazing personal experiences, the way to go is via lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences. If you reflect on these and understand what they are all about, you will gain genuine knowledge about the operations of reality, but you always need to do the hard work of reason and logic to put all knowledge in a proper, analyzable framework, providing the platform from which you can then perform the great task of supreme synthesis. In the future, humanity will use designer drugs and state-of-the-art technology to routinely induce lucid dreaming and OBEs, and these will transform the human understanding of reality. They will spell the end of materialism and empiricism, and also of mainstream religion and spirituality, of prayer, meditation and mindfulness. Humanity will be converted to rationalism and idealism, to mind-controlled mathematical reality. Mind is mathematics. That's the answer to existence.